Hey guys, you can now support this show and make your life 50% better by going to patreon.com/thesystemisdown and signing up for the Downers Club, where you're going to get access to a plethora of wild, crazy, and often offensive bonus audio and video episodes of the show on a weekly basis. For more information, just go to patreon.com/thesystemisdown. The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the obvious question of the day is, who is Q? Or what is Q? Or who are Q? Or where is Q? Or when is Q? Is Q from this reality that we're living in? So many questions to be asked and answered, hopefully in this conversation. But first, what's up, Downers? Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the entire interweb. The System is Down. My name is Dan Spots. If you're new here, of course, as always, go give a big kiss on the lips and a slap on the rear to the person who invited you here, because we have fun here, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And do it also as a thank you from me, because I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of you who are listening to the show every single Monday for your weekly dose of discomfort and sharing it with others. Please keep that up. Please help us keep the numbers growing so we can just expand this conversation. It's just one big, uncomfortable yet delightful conversation that we're having. This is the place where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics like conspiracies, politics, religion, all the things that your family prays don't bring up around the Thanksgiving dinner table, or the things that trigger certain individuals, the things that are taboo to talk about, I suppose you could say. One of those such topics has been cropping up in the news lately as the mainstream media is glomming onto this whole Q thing. If you haven't heard about it, you probably haven't been watching the news, because we'll get into the specifics of it, but they've finally started paying attention to it because people started showing up to Trump rallies in Q shirts. So now the mainstream media has to go out and give their immediate opinions without any backing or anything. And just, you've probably heard it's an alt-right conspiracy theory akin to Pizzagate that Alex Jones nut jobs believe. I'll let you know that there's a whole heck of a lot more to it than the media is ever going to give it credit for. And like I said, details coming very, very quickly here. The Downers Club, if you're not already a member, please go support the show and get a bunch of bonus content. That's all I'm going to say. Patreon.com/thesystemisdown. Sign up for as little as $5 a month. That's it. So, let's get into this conversation. I had on Scott McElroy and my brother Craig to dig into this topic. I think as it's coming to light rapidly, I think that it's time. It's time that we talked about it. So here is my conversation with Scott and Craig on who is Q. Let's get weird. Okay, so today we are talking about a topic that's been going around in the news quite a bit more. It's been around longer than I'm probably even aware of, and very fascinating things. And a lot of the time on this show, I say very clearly, I'm not here to teach. I'm not here to pontificate about my vast knowledge, because if so, the podcast would have been over a long time ago. But yeah, there are a lot of things, even things in conspiracy stuff, that I should know about that I don't know as much as I should. And so in those circumstances, I bring on guests that hopefully know a little bit more about the topic that we're talking about than I. Today we're talking about QAnon. That is the subject. And I'm joined, as sometimes, by the illustrious Craig, Baby Cray, the OG Smots, CB Smots Craig. What's up, Craig?
That was a fantastic introduction. I think that's the best one I've got. That was borderline.
And anti-Semite Craig. I missed one of the times.
Okay, you just killed it. That was almost higher side chats worthy introduction there.
Without saying anything at all about you.
Without mentioning any part of what I do. So good job.
Yes. And we are also joined by a newcomer, first time on the show, a guy that I've been friends with for a very long time because of music and band stuff and recording and all that fun stuff. Have not talked to him in person in probably 7 years, but
Yeah.
here we are getting together to talk about Q. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about in 7 years. But sure, this is Scott McElroy from the Chicago area. Scott, how's it going?
It's going very well. I'm happy to be here, man. It's good to be talking to you. And what is the podcast etiquette next? Do I talk about what high school I went to, or where? What do you want from me?
You really don't matter outside in this conversation. You don't matter outside of your knowledge of Q. So
You don't matter.
your childhood doesn't
That's
matter.
funny. My mom used to tell me that every night when she tucked me in.
Good night, son. You don't matter. There's
you don't
probably
matter.
a hell.
Yeah.
By the way,
There's probably a hell.
the world does not revolve around you. That's my favorite line to give my children. So I'm sure you've heard it. But
Yes.
he took it one step further and said,
Yeah.
you have no value to this world at all.
Right. Right. Not
So,
only
yeah,
does it not revolve around you, you can't contribute anything of worth to it either. It's a terrible place to be, son, but it's the place that I lived in before I had you. Okay.
Different
Well,
podcast. We'll dig into that in the future. You are the if we have an expert on this episode, you would be the one. Not that you are necessarily an expert. You're a layperson who digs into different things than I've dug into, which is why you're here. But since you're not an expert on it, you don't get a backstory. You're just Scott, friend of mine from the past. Scott.
Perfect.
So you are the resident expert mainly because you messaged and said, y'all should do
That's how we work here.
What about Q? And we're like, all right, come on and do it.
Yeah.
You want to do it? Let's do it.
I run my show like like people in a business or a church or something like that. When somebody brings up an issue, they're like, this needs to be done. It's like, all right, do it. You get all the knowledge, you come on and talk to me about it. And if you look stupid, that's on you. Great way to set up this episode. Right. So, Scott,
absolutely.
So Q, for those that don't know, well, I'll let you just give kind of the backstory of where this all started and what even we're talking about, because I'm sure some people haven't even heard of this thing.
Right. And I'm going to do my best to stay focused. I don't know if you watch or listen to any Jordan Peterson, but the way he talks, I feel like sometimes I do that. We're out rabbit trail. So Q started on 4chan. And keep in mind, I will probably get like specific details wrong, because frankly, the amount of information that I've exposed myself to at this point is way more than I'd ever exposed myself to before encountering it. And I think that's a really good thing. I think that's the purpose of it. But It started on 4chan, which for those who don't know, that's pretty much the last bastion of free speech in social media on the internet. It's an anonymous messaging board where people say whatever they want to say.
And nobody has to own up to their shit.
Right. They don't have to own up to it except for in the internet terms where they get downvoted to hell or banned. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or their threads get bombed to shit. I mean, they have their own currency and social, strata there that matters, but they still are allowed to speak their minds. And it's not a unique instance, this stuff. I mean, people, they post on the chans all the time claiming to be time travelers or government agents or, people from other galaxies or what have you. It's called LARPing. And the anonymous users of the chans particularly like to tear LARPs into pieces. Like they thrive on it. It's a really interesting phenomenon there because a large percentage of the users are actually autistic or on the spectrum. Seriously, if you look at the data, there's a high rate of autistic users there.
I believe
so they're not easily politicized. They're not easily emotionally manipulated. They don't like being lied to, and they're detail oriented. So when people post as government agents, what they generally do is they're there for a couple days, and then they either disappear because they get bored, or the claims that they're making get thoroughly researched by people who have way more time than you and I have to research it. And they get torn to shreds, and then they don't have an incentive to post anymore because they're not fooling anybody. Right. So
to clarify real quick, I know what it is, but could you give the rundown or the definition of LARP Because you used that word a couple times.
Yeah, LARP, live action role playing.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody pretending to be something that they aren't.
It's like the computerized version of, you see like people enacting like medieval like fights out in like the parks and stuff like that. What's that movie where the kid did that was like a, what's it called? It's got
Does this have anything to do with what we're talking about?
It has to do with LARPing. It's just
Okay.
Got Paul
people
Rudd
dressing.
in it.
What's that? Yeah,
Paul
I know.
Rudd is in it. I know the movie you're talking about.
But yeah, it's just basically LARPing originally was that you dressed up as like spacemen or like medieval knights and went out in parks and like fought real life battles.
Trekkies.
Right. Trekkies could be considered, or like Comic-Con type people, but now this is morphed into like internet things where people go and play,
pretend to be authorities,
pretend to be things on the internet.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
continue.
That context is actually very critical. The fact that this started on that platform of all of the places that it could have started is very critical in my opinion, because of the nature of the anonymous users on that medium. So Q is the name that a poster, or in my opinion, multiple posters, a team of posters, used to refer to themselves. They started posting in late October of 2017 and have been posting at a pretty high rate pretty consistently ever since. So we're up to post 1878 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 1,878 posts. It's been consistent. It's been nonstop. The longest break that he took, or they took, was 20 days. And that was at the beginning.
Like 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was after July 4th. July 4th was their last post, and then they were silent for 20 days. So they started posting on 4chan, claiming to be high-level intelligence officers in the United States military or the government, working closely with the Trump administration to essentially combat and remove the shadow government from their place of power and control, not only in the United States, but more broadly on a global level. And that specific point is probably something that, if you follow the news at all over the past week, you have seen or heard that these people who follow Q believe that Trump is this mastermind who's taking out this deep state. But the way that the mainstream media frames it, of course, is that it's ludicrous to even think that it's possible for there to be a deep state. So deep state is always heavily quotation marked, and they give it a very mocking, like, obviously anybody with any brains in their head knows that that's a ridiculous premise on its face, you know.
And it's always like alt-right conspiracy groups think this. It's like,
which is funny to me, because you get people on all sides of the map talking about like shadow governments and stuff like that. But then when it comes down to something like this, they're like, oh, the deep state, obviously. It's like, but in other circumstances, you have no problem talking about,
absolutely,
in the very least, like the powers behind the powers. They will mention something like that. But if you mention the word deep state or stuff like that, then you're crazy.
Right. I mean, these are the same people who like actively claimed that there was a deep state that started the war in Iraq, right? But they blame the Republicans, and they say it's the Republican deep state. The reality is, of course, that both parties are the deep state. That there's no discernible difference in result or policy between either party, and there hasn't been for decades. Even Reagan, in his second term, ended up delegating that to George H.W. Bush. But that I think is because he, had an assassination attempt and survived it, but was docile after that.
Yeah, I believe probably since Lyndon Johnson, all the presidents have probably been somewhat influenced by the deep state.
Lyndon Johnson was.
Lyndon Johnson, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Since him, he was the
JFK assassination.
I think JFK was one of the last real, like, I'm going to do what I want presidents, and that's probably what got him assassinated.
Well, it's definitely what got him assassinated. And things have happened. They released the second half of the JFK files in April. The mainstream, the media didn't talk about it at all, and for good reason, because one of the things that you discover there is that 2 FBI agents who were stationed overseas, they were within, they were distant from each other, so they weren't working together. Both of them independently picked up chatter on American intelligence back channels that they were planning on assassinating John F. Kennedy in November. And it was about a month before Kennedy was assassinated that these FBI agents picked up this chatter. They reported what they found to the FBI leadership and the Department of Justice, who promptly buried it in the ground and never did anything about it. And then a month later, John F. Kennedy was assassinated. We had already known from the first half of the drops that there were multiple shooters. So the whole Lee Harvey Oswald thing was bullshit, like everybody thought it was. And the reality is that was a CIA operation. Our own government killed John F. Kennedy. And that was for a number of reasons, because he was openly against the deep state. He said, I will break the CIA into a million pieces and scatter it to the wind,
and we're going to probably be doing a full-length JFK episode soon, so we should jump back to K here. Or Q here.
I just want to say, still, the mainstream media basically said that the new JFK releases were a big nothing burger, even though just the fact alone that there were multiple shooters leads to conspiracy.
Right. So so diverting back to Q. So they started posting on the chans, right? And they got the same response that any LARPer gets on the chans, which is thorough scrutiny. Mm-hmm. What ended up happening is they gained a following, a considerable following. I mean, right now it's a huge following. You're talking millions of people in this country are aware of the Q movement and buy into it on some level. It is not a small fringe flat earth conspiracy thing. It's a united
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but whatever.
Well, you know what I mean. There are thousands of them. There are dozens of us.
Well,
yep.
Let me
anyway, so they
jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
I think it was in June, I had heard, like, I haven't religiously followed his posts, but I do listen to people that kind of break down his posts and stuff. And one of these people said that Q had predicted that by July, the concept of Q would go mainstream. It would go from fans, it would go mainstream. And within weeks, you start hearing it on the mainstream media. And I was running 2 weeks ago, I was running down a main road, and I look up and there's this minivan parked at a light that with big paint on the back window, it says QAnon or whatever across the back of the window. I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's coming mainstream.
It's a real thing. I had an encounter with a real life Q follower at a beer garden probably about a month ago. I was with a couple friends and I was kind of trying to red pill them a little bit and tell them about this stuff. And the table next to us, one of the ladies sitting there had clearly overheard me, and she piped in and was like, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I looked at her, I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. Are you talking about Q right now? And I went, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It was, I've never had that kind of experience in a public place ever. Even as a believer, you know what I mean? Christians don't do that, where they're like, I couldn't help but overhear you talking about Jesus. Like, let's bond over that. It was really unreal. It is a real movement. So back to the more broad 40,000 foot view of it. What if we're working retrospectively now, given that we've got 9 months of this under our belt? It's clear to me what the Q movement is. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a cult. It's an information dissemination military op. That's what it is. It's brilliant in its scope and its command of game theory. It's brilliant, but that's what it is. The only
break down some of the stuff that he talks about, so we can kind of have an idea of the level of drops that or information that he's putting out there.
Right. So basically what Q does is the format and structure of the posts are such that there's a lot of rhetorical questions. There's a lot of abbreviations. There's multiple layers of coding, whether that be in the form of spelling errors or capitalizations or brackets, whatever. And as the posts aggregated, the anonymous users learned how to read them, by identifying internal coherence and then confirming it, and this is key, with real life things that are happening in the news, right? And so that's what I mean by information dissemination project. The Q movement is designed to get millions of people to be aware, and hundreds of thousands of people to spend all of their time researching things and finding real facts, real money trails, real business associations, real indictments, real federal court proceeding statistics. All of the stuff that the Q people believe is real stuff. And they were directed to it, pointed to it by the Q team. So that's the function. So things, I'll give some examples, starting with more recent events. Okay. I've been distrustful of the media ever since the election because they were so utterly wrong about it.
Is that all? Is that
that's as far back
really
as
that recent?
No, we'll start. No, I'll start back with the election because it's important. Because that's where.
No, I was saying that's it's been that recent that you've started mistrusting the media or distrusting.
No. I mean like utterly thoroughly. I always was like, clearly they're biased. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I never started to believe, oh my God, I think that they're like blatantly lying to us most of the time.
Sure.
Until Las Vegas and the election. Those are the two things. Las Vegas was the nail in the coffin, but the election built the coffin. I'm like, man, these people were so wrong. And the Las Vegas thing is clearly a cover up of something bigger, which, by the way, the Q thing actually explains very well what happened in Las Vegas. But we can dive into that later.
Yep.
So starting with the 2015-2016 election, because that's the opening of Pandora's box. Okay, there's way more shit in the box than the 2016 election, but that's where it's going to start. So it's a good place to start when talking about what Q has led us to discover, right? And we know now via the FISA warrant release, via the Inspector General report release regarding the Clinton server investigation, via Peter Strzok's conflicting testimony with Lisa Page. All of these things, by the way, are things that Q talked about and alluded to weeks before they happened and became public knowledge. But we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Russia investigation was a setup from start to finish. It was an insurance policy designed to hopefully get Trump out of office should he win the presidency. And it was initiated via purely illegal means, and it was treasonous. What they did was they committed treason. James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Sally Yates, Loretta Lynch, you name them, all of them were in on it. They knew about it. They approved it. They lied knowingly to the FISA court to start an investigation they knew wasn't real, because all of the indictments, all the people that Trump had contact with that were Russians were CIA and FBI assets that were on the CIA payroll, that were planted there to entice the Trump administration into accepting dirt on Clinton from Russia. So that's what the whole Trump Tower meeting was. We know now, if you're looking at the right media, we know now that that was a setup, that the Russians they were talking to were being paid by Democrats via a lot of laundering. You pay through an organization that pays another organization that pays the person. But you follow the money, which is what Q told the people to do, and you find it's clear as day, what happened. Right? So that's a huge deal in and of itself. And that's going to explode on the public scene. I'm talking the clip at which things are happening at this point is so rapid, it's hard for me to keep up with it. But a few things that happened today that are important. One, Yahoo News and investors.com both posted articles that state unequivocally that, it looks like the Russia collusion story turns out to be about Clinton, not about Trump. So you have media sources that are generally considered to be reputable now openly stating it looks like Hillary Clinton is the one that colluded with the Russians to commit crimes. Okay, so that means they know the
recent news, because I haven't even heard about this.
It happened today.
Really? Okay.
Those articles were published today.
Huh.
Yeah. So you had James Clapper a couple weeks ago on CNN who stated, and I quote, "Well, if it wasn't for President Obama, we probably wouldn't have even done the intelligence assessment that got the snowball rolling that led to a lot of things, including the Mueller investigation." So, yeah, I mean, President Obama is the one that got that started. literally throws them under the bus because the rats know the ship is sinking. They're trying to preserve themselves as best they can. They're not going to preserve themselves. They're going to jail. There are no deals. The Q team was very clear about that in one of their posts. No deals. So you start with that, okay? And then you view everything that the media has reported about, view through a completely different lens, and it all makes sense because I didn't encounter the Q stuff until May. Actually, Craig, I think it was because of a post that you made about the Arizona child camp.
Yep.
That Veterans on Patrol had found, and there was a Q post. I think it was Neon Revolt, maybe, that you posted the article. That was the first time I encountered Q. I didn't think much of it. I encountered it again via other means a couple weeks later during the North Korea summit. Okay. And that's when I really started to be like, all right, this is more. I was intrigued by it before with the Arizona camp. Now I'm pretty sure that it's legit in terms of these people who are posting, they've got inside information. At a certain point. Yeah.
Sorry. There's kind of a delay. So if I interrupt you, that's why. My experience with Q was getting on some of these YouTube conspiracy theory videos, and they, like, almost all of them started talking about Q. So it was intriguing to me. Like you said, it was just kind of intriguing because we all want the stuff he's saying to happen. We want these criminals to be taken out, and we want somebody, that person, to do it, or a group of people that steps up to the plate and does it. But I didn't take it seriously for a long time. I just kind of had it, like, I would like listen to people's breakdowns of it and stuff and just keep it to myself. And then at one point it started getting kind of serious, and I'm like, well, we have to at least mention this Q thing, because to be considered a conspiracy theory podcast, we want to be doing ourselves justice if we didn't at least mention it. And then if it did come true, I didn't want to be the conspiracy theory podcast that did not mention it whatsoever.
And
come in afterwards and be like, hey, this Q thing predicted all this, and we didn't, like, at least do a little bit of diligence and look into it ourselves.
Here's the thing about the Q thing, though. I mean, if you take this whole, I mean, conspiracy or not, whatever you want to call it, this is like the conspiracy-minded guy's or person's wet dream. Like, this is the most entertaining that life could possibly be, in my opinion. Like, we have this community of, like, autistic people who are analyzing every little speck of everything. They finally have a place where they can do their thing. That's where we are in 2018, which that is kind of strange in and of itself. And then we have this anonymous source that is, like, rabbit trailing, feeding these bits of information. It's like a murder mystery in real life that we all get to play. And it's like, there's a part of me that's, like, skeptical, like, this seems too good to be true for this to exist in my lifetime with my brain. This seems too good to be true. And it could just, there's a part of me that thinks maybe it's somebody leading us on and distracting us from something else. But there's a part of me that's like, I hope every bit of this is 100% factual. Yeah,
I completely understand that point of view, because that's the kind of mind that I have. I do not like believing stuff if I don't feel like I've got a lot of good, confident reasons to believe it, you know? So I'm not the kind of person who's just raised in my faith and then just bought it. And I wrestle tremendously with the things that I believe, you know, and I treated this no differently. I love conspiracy theories. I've always enjoyed them, whether it's talking about central banking, or whether it's talking about, the flat earth or what have you, or the electric universe even. I like alternate avenues of thought, but I never subscribed fully to any of them. I would never say that I'm a flat earther. I would never say that I believe the Jews run the world. I'd never say any of the reptilians or any of those things.
Anti-Semite.
Right?
Yeah, there's the.
You're saying I would never say that because I'm not allowed to, because the Jews run the world.
Yes,
I say it all the time. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm the same way. My brain. Here's how my brain works. I'm overly skeptical of Q up until a month ago, when all of a sudden the mainstream media starts completely bashing on Q and
went nuts.
reporting on this bizarre conspiracy, stupid theory. Then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? There probably might be something to this because they are putting in a lot of effort to discredit this. That's my conspiracy theory.
That's
exactly.
true, but it's kind of the same.
Why do you think 5,000 people a week is what Q and the Anons estimate? Q said at 5,000 plus added people a week.
That's not just Q.
Go ahead.
According to, I know you tipped me off to Praying Medic, I think is who you tipped me to. He was kind of a big source of Q information. He says that there's a website that if you are in law at all, like if you're a lawyer or something, you have access to this website and you can look at all these like open cases and indictments, stuff like that. And through that website, not through Q, but through that website, you can see that normally there's like 1,100 to like 1,500 closed indictments a year, at most like 1,500. And he said that right now there's a minimum, I think this was a month ago that he posted this video that I watched today. There's like 35,000, and they're, like you said, they're adding like 5,000 closed indictments a month. So something is going on, whether it's that or something else. Something is going on this year.
On the sealed indictments thing, because in the Q community, it's kind of become a colloquial thing to refer to the unknown. It's an unknown number of sealed indictments. The way that sealed court proceedings work is that until they're unsealed, the only thing you know about them is that there's a sealed court proceeding. So a court proceeding could be a grand jury being impaneled. It could be a search warrant request. It could be any number of things. But nevertheless, there are something like 400 to 500% more sealed court proceedings in the last 9 months than you see on average every year. So regardless of whether or not you're going to haggle on that number, I think it's important because I think that the enemy of this movement likes to take small details and errors and blow them up to invalidate something. So I don't like it when people say there are 45,000 indictments. There aren't 45,000 indictments, but there are certainly thousands of indictments, and it's still an unprecedented number. So for me, like I said, I encountered the Q stuff in May, but I've been informed as best as I can be since Trump took office by looking at alternate sources of media that I trust that cite the actual source of the facts that they're reporting, right? So for me as a conservative, a constitutionalist, libertarian, voluntarist sometimes, but definitely not let's make more government happen. I've been sitting here throwing my hands up because I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? It's already clear as day to anybody who's not brainwashed in a partisan hack that they did some fucked up stuff in 2016, illegal stuff. I mean, we knew that in February of 2017, and all due to the Mueller investigation, or March or whenever that started. As soon as that started, the only dirt that was coming up was stuff like Uranium One details. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, where is our Justice Department? What is Jeff Sessions doing, recusing himself? Now you got Rosenstein, who's clearly a fucking Democrat stooge and a pawn of the Obama administration. And now he appoints Mueller, and we all know Mueller's history and what's going on. What are they doing? Well, I'll tell you what, the Q stuff actually makes it make perfect sense. And that's another reason why I would say now that I do believe it. I do definitely believe that the Q team is really composed of people who have access to information that citizens don't have access to. And I don't think that they're evil either, because the sheer volume and depravity of the stuff that the Q team has drawn attention to is staggering. And no covert psyop to like double, triple fool the public into thinking that the good guys would ever shine the light on the kind of stuff that the Q team has led these people to discover. Right. So that's a reason.
Yeah, that was actually kind of my next question. I mean, for me, it's like, who can you trust? Like, I think Alex Jones is a little bit bought out, even with all this whole controversy going on with him. And there's part of me that's like, there's always this, but what if that guy is double crossing that guy? Or like Alex Jones exposed some of the Q stuff, and then he brought on Zach or somebody to refute it, and ended up pointing completely different directions and everything. So it's always like, who do you trust? But I mean, for this
Well,
to be anonymous, I think it is helpful because they're not gaining anything from it. Correct?
What's that?
Like these people that are putting up these Q
Repeat that
posts,
question.
they're not gaining anything from it.
No,
Correct?
no. And here's the thing: is the media will paint it as, oh, we think the people that started Q are the same people that are making a lot of merchandise and making money off of it, and that's just simply not true. Q, a couple things I can also say for sure about the movement, because I follow it. Like, I am a huge lurker on the subreddit, which is Great Awakening. For anybody listening that wants to go to that subreddit and start lurking, it really only takes a little bit of time for you to navigate and get the picture of what's going on. Like I said, I came into it in May, late May. So there's 5 months of Q posts that I had no access to. And I was able to pick up on what's going on pretty quick and learn how to read the comms, as Q would say. So it's not difficult to pick up once you understand properly what it's actually saying. But the point is that according to the Q stuff, the past 2 years has been masterful kabuki theater. Okay. According to the Q team, and they're right from a constitutional level, if the underlying premise is true that these people are evil and have done evil things for years, none of that evil stuff went away. The proof is there. They built an information mining infrastructure, okay, and then they lost control of it. Nothing they did disappeared, right? If you accept those premises to be true, then constitutionally, Trump absolutely already does know it all. And if he's surrounded by good people, namely the military, who planned this, I believe, then he does have the constitutional authority to declassify anything that he wants to declassify, right? And so this has all been about optics, okay? Because from an evidential standpoint, it's exactly what I thought since early 2017. Hello, there's already enough reasonable suspicion to launch full-on investigations into these people and put them in jail. They're clearly criminals. They had enough evidence to do a hot coup if they wanted to. They could have, constitutionally speaking, rolled tanks out, declared a national emergency, deployed the National Guard, and U.S. Marshals would have arrested these people on day 2, and they would have all gone to jail. But what would have happened to this country? A civil war would have happened to this country. Right. Okay, so they couldn't do it that way. And they also can't, it's about optics, right? They have to follow all of the proper legal channels and exhaust them completely before they trigger the end game, which is fucking military tribunals. All right? This isn't going to go before, a lot of these people aren't going to go before a normal jury. They're going to be hauled in front of a military tribunal, and they're going to be sentenced that way because of the seriousness of their crimes, right? So it all makes sense when you accept that to be true, because I'll explain it to you. Using fact and only fact, right? Because that's the point of Q. Jeff Sessions recuses himself. Rod Rosenstein takes over in all of the matters related to the Russia investigation. He recommends to Trump that Trump fire Comey. He's one of the people that recommended that Comey be fired. And then he uses Comey's firing as a justification for the appointment of Robert Mueller, the special counsel. Right? Saying that firing was potentially obstruction of justice. Okay. So Mueller's investigation starts at that point, and he's given a huge amount of scope for a special counsel, right? He's got 26 investigators as beck and call. All of them are Democrats, or Democrat donors. It's clearly a sham investigation for anybody who's not brainwashed. And just can't not buy the party line. If you're looking at the facts already in 2017, you know, okay, this is stinky, right? So here's what's been going on since October, and this is why it's brilliant, right? Sessions recused himself so that he can do his job, because it's a lot more than just a Russia investigation that he needs to take care of. It's the investigation that he's running parallel to the Mueller investigation that the media hasn't said a word about, right? In November, which was right after Q started posting, Jeff Sessions appointed a U.S. attorney named John Huber to assist Michael Horowitz in all of his various investigations, because Michael Horowitz is preparing reports on a lot more than just the server investigation, Okay. Now here's why that's important. And why people like me who are sitting there like, why don't we have another investigation going on? Where is another special counsel to investigate this unconstitutional special counsel? What's going on? Jeff Sessions did us way better than a special counsel. Okay. John Huber has all the prosecutorial power of a special counsel, but he's unlimited in his scope in terms of what he's allowed to investigate. So John Huber can take the investigation wherever it leads them. They could start with the server investigation and then find themselves in, sex trafficking land, and have full authority to impanel grand juries, to throw in sealed indictments. And here's the thing, John Huber's got 470 investigators at his beck and call, working with him and Michael Horowitz for the past 9 months, which is exactly the length of time that Q has been posting. And the media didn't say a damn word about it. Okay. So here's another thing that's interesting about Trump that I think lends credence to all of this. Trump is a genius when it comes to marketing himself. When he was in the real estate game in the 70s, he used to spread disinformation about himself to make him an undesirable buyer. And then he would hire other buyers to buy the properties that he wanted for him at way lower prices than he would have been expected to pay had he not trashed his own reputation. Seriously.
So what you're hinting at is this bumbling guy that everybody's been ragging on for the last 2.5, 3 years now.
Can do no right.
This is all a facade, saying for basically what you just said with his how he went with his real estate, that he's just trying to, I don't know, explain that.
Yeah. So you're watching a character a lot of the time. Okay. Trump won the presidency for a reason, because he actually campaigned, unlike his opponent. But B, he knew how to use what the media does against them. And Donald Trump consumes media almost exclusively. It's another odd thing about him. He reads multiple newspapers a day. He watches all of the media, not just CNN or Fox. He watches all of it. I mean, he consumes it like a crazy person. And
similar to one.
I mean,
yes.
that's a smart strategy. You should at least, especially if somebody's your enemy, like he says CNN's against him. Why wouldn't you at least listen to what they're saying about you?
Right.
I mean, you get people all the time that hate Fox News or hate CNN that refuse to watch any of it. It's like I read both of them, because even though I don't believe either one of them, because I at least want to get perspective on both sides.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. It's funny that you bring up the enemy, your enemy, because another thing about Donald Trump, and I know that people have theorized for a while that maybe he's actually playing 4D chess with these people. Mm-hmm. But I believe he is playing 4D chess with them, because in the art of war, which Donald Trump has been talking about for decades, dude, Donald Trump loves the art of war. I think he used it in his real estate conquest, and I think that they're utilizing the art of war now. Feign weakness when you're strong, feign strength when you're weak. Know thyself and thy enemy, and you'll win 100% of your battles. You know what I mean? Never tell the enemy what you're doing. You can, and on and on and on and on. It sure as hell resembles what the Trump administration has pulled off. Okay, so things like Trump doesn't like Sessions, right? I mean, he tweets. He never says anything good about him. Anytime Trump tweets about Jeff Sessions, it's always negative. He's always like, where is Jeff Sessions? Why isn't he doing his job? Blah, da, 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 da. Who doesn't the media talk about? Jeff Sessions. They don't give a shit about Jeff Sessions. Why? Because Donald Trump doesn't appear to like him. So they may not like him because he was a racist, and they may have, not been a fan of his confirmation when he was first nominated. But now it's clear to them, or so they think, that Sessions doesn't really like Trump, and they believe that Trump is an idiot.
He's our buddy then.
Right. And they believe that he's such an idiot, and that his campaign was chaotic, and that his administration is full of chaos. Well, yeah, because you have to feign chaos. You know what I mean? So okay, so how about this? Jared Kushner was Donald Trump's campaign manager from start to finish. Paul Manafort and whoever the other guys were that filled the position throughout the campaign, those were never the campaign managers. Jared Kushner was a campaign manager, okay? Because you don't want people, your enemy, to know who's actually calling the shots. You need people that they can target thinking that they've got their guy, and they don't got their guy. So that's what Donald Trump does, right? Sessions is off doing his own thing, and the media doesn't report on it. But that's an insane fact that you should know, that John Huber's been investigating who knows what, and we've got 400, 500% more sealed court proceedings in that space of time since he was appointed than we've ever had in our modern history, in recorded history of sealed indictments. That's crazy to me. Okay, so who are they going to put in jail? Who are all of these having to do with? Right? It's because the corruption runs way deeper and way wider than you think. It's not just 2016, 2015. It's what they spent the entire Obama years doing. Okay, the servers, right? Those weren't just careless. She was selling state secrets to China in exchange for donations to the Clinton Foundation. Clinton Foundation is a fucking slush fund. It's a laundering scheme. That's all it ever was. It's pay to play. All of the evidence is there, and they already have it. So what we're witnessing now is the information war. They have to get the public to a certain critical mass of knowledge about this before they actually start getting the big ones.
So do you think that it is like in cooperation with Trump? Like, does Trump know about them? And
absolutely.
he's plotting out how to, without doing full military coup, like revamp everything, overhaul. Like he's using this to trickle out the information to the point where there's not like mass chaos in the streets because everybody's minds are blown. He wants people to gradually get this over time. How do you? So solid yes there, I take it.
Yeah. It's not like, I'm not trying to paint Donald Trump as this genius mastermind who planned all of this. Donald Trump is a genius, but I believe he was asked to run for president by the military. I believe that this military operation has been in the works for a long time. It's not something that they just kind of pieced together in 2015 when they were like, oh shit, if Clinton wins, we're done. They have been biding their time for a decade or more, who knows, to figure out when the time is right to undo everything that they spent most of the 20th century accomplishing in terms of consolidating their power. So
real quick, well, I mean, some of the issue that I have with Alex Jones's like undying support of Trump is that he always said, basically, if there's a deep state, then whoever is president can't be trusted because they were appointed by the deep state. And you've talked about the deep state as well. Do you think that is true or not?
Well, okay, so touching on Alex Jones, I think Alex Jones is a shill. I don't know that he knows to what extent, but I think that because Alex Jones is primarily an opportunist, I think that he's had sources for years. I think that the quality of his sources varies. And I think that the people who feed him information, I think they are coordinated in their efforts to feed him information. I don't know if he knows that or to what extent he knows that, but the purpose of people like Alex Jones are to make people who think that there's a deep state look crazy. Okay, because Alex Jones talks about stuff like deep state, talks about stuff like Obama probably wasn't a citizen, but then he also
9/11, all that. I've said the same. Like I do believe to an extent he is a psyop of some sort. He's disinformation because, like, if you think conspiracy theorist, which was a name created by the CIA, you think Alex Jones, but everybody lumps them into the same category.
Right. But, so to answer the question about the military and whether or not Trump is working for them, and that question about Alex Jones saying, "Oh, all presidents are appointed."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all have been appointed, right? But here's the thing: it's a mantra that Q repeats very often. They never thought that she would lose. They never, ever thought that she was going to lose. Like what I mean by that is, it wasn't that they tried to rig an election in her favor and failed to do so.
They didn't think they had to.
They rigged it and then they lost it. They lost a rigged election. Okay.
Which I've said several times on this show that the numbers came out right, like the day before or the day of the election of the voting, and it was like 90% in her favor or more. I'm just like, there is no way.
Nope.
It can't be that high, because
Nope.
I said from day one, Trump's going to win this. He's going to take this. And when those numbers come out, I was like, where are they getting these numbers from? And then all of a sudden lost, and they're like, how the hell did we lose this?
Yes.
We had such confidence, and it was just, the whole thing seemed sketchy to me.
Well, it's not just because they were confident that they had won the culture war, and that if they just told everybody that Hillary was going to win, they would all go vote for her. It wasn't just that. It was that they had hacked the election like they've hacked many elections in the past. And so they had fail safes in place, or so they thought, that would ensure that they won the election, even if they didn't actually succeed in their programming, right? So what I think, there's an interesting theory among the Anons, that the Pizzagate stuff was intentionally dropped by WikiLeaks at that time, so that the deep state would panic and focus on that, because they have a lot to fear when it comes to exposing pedophilia.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they went ahead and unhacked key counties in the states that won for Trump, like Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, Ohio, right? Mm-hmm. Because when it comes to voter fraud, they don't have to program every machine to lie. They just have to program certain machines in certain counties, right? So like, I think that that's very possible, given the other things that I know the Q team has done. So touching on your point with Q and Trump and are they coordinating, that's another reason why I believe the Q stuff. Because at this point, I do think it's mathematically impossible for it to be coincidence how many times POTUS tweets line up with things that Q posts minutes before. Okay, so a couple key things. One, Q posted a partial transcript of Peter Strzok's closed door testimony in front of Congress the morning of the testimony, while it was happening. And then when the public testimony happened and the congressmen were referring to what had transpired in the private closed door testimony, it verified the entire transcript of what they had discussed during that private. The Q team knew that Jared Kushner went to Saudi Arabia on an unofficial visit a month before that became public news. Okay. And then a couple days after that became public news, 11 members of the Saudi Arabian royal family were arrested by the Saudi Arabian government for corruption. Okay. That, and Q says that is part of the plan. It's not just getting rid of the deep state in America, because the deep state's a global thing, right? So the House of Saud, funders of terrorism, funders of these splinter cells, they got taken out. And wouldn't you know it, Saudi Arabia got a hell of a lot more moderate after that happened. It was the same thing with North Korea, okay? The Q team got Anons to dig into the Korean Peninsula's history. And what you find is that after World War II, North Korea was a puppet regime for the Soviets. The Kim Jong family was installed by the Soviets. Okay. And then when the Berlin Wall fell in 1991, the CIA moved in. And so North Korea became a puppet state for the CIA. That's why North Korea has nukes. Okay. That's why Iran got nukes, because nukes is one of the big things that the deep state holds over the population to keep them scared enough to accept ever increasing top-down solutions that will only further enslave them by design, right? It's very, very insidious what they did. So when you look at world events through the lens of, oh my God, Trump knows not just what Americans have done, but what their networks in the world have done, right? He's got a tremendous amount of leverage over these people because he wasn't supposed to win and because he's not controllable, right? So then the question becomes like assassination attempts, you know?
Yep.
Have they tried? You better believe they've tried. Do you remember that Hawaii missile alert that happened? When for 30 minutes, all the citizens in Hawaii thought that they were going to get nuked?
Yep. Very much so.
Okay.
Good times.
Those great times. You don't accidentally send that alert. The amount of layers and fail safes in place to ensure that you don't do that by accident.
You would think so.
Yeah. It wasn't an accident. Whoever sent that signal.
I set my coffee on the big red button.
Right. Whoops. Yeah. Okay, Homer. It doesn't work like that. It's not a cartoon, and people should know that. Okay, there are fail safes in place, right? And so whoever sent that signal did it because his equipment was telling him that there was a nuclear missile headed towards Hawaii, plain and simple, right? But there was no explosion off the coast of Hawaii and no missile hit Hawaii, and they said it was an accident. Fast forward a month, and then you've got the unauthorized missile launch off of Whidbey Island, or near Whidbey Island on the Washington state coast. Mm-hmm. That was captured on video by a citizen, somebody who lives nearby that island. I seen the video, dude. It's a missile, right? The media didn't report on that. You'd think they would.
I
haven't even heard about this.
Nope.
Yeah. A missile was launched off of the coast of Washington state. Okay. But again, there was no missile detonation over the ocean anywhere, no seismograph. Why? Well, the Q team, while that was happening, hinted and got the anon that those were in fact assassination attempts on the president. Those were meant to detonate underneath Air Force One over the ocean and, knock the plane out. But they were intercepted. Why? How can they do that? Well, Q hinted that they had technology to do that. After that second missile launch, I think it was like the week after, the Department of Defense released some classified documents regarding some new military tech that we have. And when you know it, we've got long distance lasers that are mountable on F-16 fighter jets that can neutralize intercontinental ballistic missiles, not detonate them, but just kill their power and drop them into the ocean. That's a real thing that the military has. And Q was talking about F-16 jets in regards to those missiles for a long time. Okay. Then you've got, did you hear about that weird plane crash? The guy that hijacked the plane?
I heard bits and pieces of it. Yeah, the barrel roll suicide mission.
Yeah, barrel roll. And where he crashed, a place called Kedron Island, which is near where that missile was launched, allegedly.
Okay. I don't know the conspiracy or any of that stuff behind it. I just know something happened.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much.
Killing himself.
Yeah, so that guy is a mechanic at the airport, and he manages to hop in this Q4. It's a Q400 model, twin engine jet. Similar to a Cessna. It's not a very big plane. Sure. It's not easily maneuverable. It's not easily started. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have some training to fly a plane. You don't just hop in one and kind of fucking wing it, right? Yeah. So this guy goes and he flies off, and he does a couple really complicated maneuvers over the ocean. And then he circles an island for a while and then crashes into it and dies. And it's ruled a suicide, crazy guy who did a suicide or whatever. Well, Anons were speculating yesterday about that. And they're like, yeah, the name of the guy, because, okay, I'm going to backtrack. So something that's been very important for the Q team to get the population to understand is the communication structure of the enemy. Okay? Because they communicate openly via Twitter, in public, award ceremonies, you name it, newscasts, whatever. They speak in code. And the Q, part of the Q structure is that they use the same comm structure. So the Q team uses the same comm structure that the deep state uses to teach their followers not only how to read the Q drops, but also how to identify when the deep state's communicating with each other, right? And really, really fascinating because it does line up when you know that, right? So that plane crash was two things. One, it was a military operation to take out essentially a missile launching installation that they had built on that island, which is a privately owned island. And the guy who hijacked the plane, his name is Russell B. Simmons. His nickname is Bebo, Russell B. Simmons. Russell B. Simmons is also the name of a decommissioned nuclear submarine that the CIA retrofitted to be able to carry modern nuclear warheads that the Anons believe the deep state had in its possession to be able to launch nukes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that it was stationed at that island, which had access to the sea. And that's where they launched that missile at the beginning of, when was the second one? Late July? I don't remember. Right? So it's this Q400, Russell B. Simmons gets in this plane, right, and manages to do things that he shouldn't be able to do. And then he just crashes it into this island. Okay. But if you look at the flight pattern online of the plane, he flies it in a queue before crashing it into the island. I shit
Really?
you not. It's a queue. Okay. So
I had not even heard that part about it.
Yeah. It's nuts. Right. And so what that was the second thing it was a middle finger to the deep state. Because it was using their own way of communicating to say, fuck you, we're taking out your missile. You're not going to launch that no more. What are you going to do? You're going to start a war? And they could try to start a war. They already have tried to start a war. There was that accidentally fired some missiles towards the Romanian border. All of these accidental things that accidentally get fired, or accidental codes that no, it's not an accident. You're living in the middle of a war right now. It's crazy stuff, right? So let's get to Q proofs with the president.
Hold on.
Okay.
Well, real quick before we get into that, my only pushback on the Russell B. Simmons thing is like, do you feel like it's a bit of a stretch for this guy? I mean, you look at kamikaze pilots from Japan, you're not like, that guy's trying to say something. You just assume he's a crazy person.
Right.
But
how do you crash a plane in the shape of a cube?
No, he flew around the island in a circle and then did the little dash and then crashed into the island after that.
I like it, but I'm curious.
I'm not spelling out all of the details of it.
Sure.
There's more to it than just his name they released the audio of his conversation with the flight tower while he was on the plane, right? It doesn't sound like a dude who is nervous at all about flying a plane that, according to him, he's played some video games before. So like, he's pretty sure he knows what he's doing.
There's no Flight Simulator, Windows 95.
Right. So there's no way that he accomplished those maneuvers without crashing that plane. Yeah. Whether or not he was on the plane, I don't know. The Seattle chapter of the FBI has not publicly said that the remains that were found were his. They said that they found remains. They haven't identified them as his yet. But I think it's plausible, at least, that it was remotely controlled. And it was used as an excuse to deploy. Oh, that's the other thing. Some more details that back up that theory. The amount of time that it took these F-15 fighter jets to intercept this stolen plane was an hour. It was like crazy. They like weren't in a hurry at all to take care of it. They just kind of tailed him for a while. And then he crashed onto an island as cover for them launching a couple cruise missiles at this island and taking out some deep state infrastructure. So Trump. Did you hear about the bill that Trump signed?
Which one?
The military defense initiative bill. I think it was today that he signed it. It might have been yesterday, but again, this is very recent. So
we're the news guys that know about the news usually a week or two after they happen. Then we report them a week later. So you'll have to cue us in.
I will cue you in. Ha ha ha. So a little bit of backstory. The Q team doesn't say John McCain's name. Okay. One of the pieces of the puzzle is the Q team's been very clear that John McCain is a traitor.
I can't imagine why they would say that.
Yeah. Why would you say that? They do not like John McCain, so much so that they don't even give him the dignity of saying his name. And they've been very clear about that. And I mean, never. They refer to him as no name, but they don't say his name ever.
He who shall not be spoken of.
Yes.
I never caught on to that, but that's interesting.
Yeah. The Q team never refers to John McCain by name, and they're open about it. So President Trump signs this military defense initiative bill and has a press conference about, to do the signing. And it's 28 minutes. Donald Trump sits there talking about this bill, and he's so happy. He loves the bill. It's a great bill. He's happy to be signing it. He's happy.
Sounds about right.
It's
just
great.
Not the right voice, but those sound like direct quotes.
Yeah. I mean, it might as well be
the best bill ever.
He thinks that it's doing a great service to the people that really deserve and earn recognition and blah 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 blah. Here's the kicker: the name of the bill is the John C. McCain Defense Initiative Bill, or Defense Spending Initiative Act. That's the name of the bill. It's named for John McCain. President Trump didn't say John McCain's name once in the 28 minutes that he spoke about signing a bill named after John McCain. Trump didn't say his name. Why?
Wow.
Because they don't say his name.
Why is it named after him? Is there backstory?
I think he was a sponsor of the bill when it was initially drafted or something. But the point is that it was noticeable enough that like New York Times and other outlets wrote articles about it. What a dick. Won't even say John McCain's name. How disrespectful. But what it is to Q people is a very obvious confirmation that, I'm aware of the Q movement. And there have been plenty of those. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of those types of confirmations at rallies. There was when he went to Kansas City on the way, there were a bunch of people on the highway with posters and stuff. They wanted to greet the motorcade and everything. And one of them had a big old poster that said honk for Q, and they honked. And not only did they honk, but they honked in Morse code. Some of the Anons noticed.
Oh my gosh.
The letter Q.
Freaking Rain Men over here.
Yeah.
The shit out. Oh my gosh.
And that's the other crazy thing about it is that it's genius, because what the Q team did was they essentially built themselves a human supercomputer that's able to do all of the researching and archiving that's necessary in the event that the deep state decides to cut the internet, or hack the power grid for a time. And those things are distinct possibilities. Q's been very clear about that, but they're not unprepared for them. So if the lights go out, it's all right. Don't panic. That's what he said. And when I say it's easier. I do believe it's a team. I don't believe it's one person.
Yeah.
But there are tons of the same kinds of instances with Trump's tweets, whether it's in the amount of time elapsed between Q's post and then a Trump tweet, or the content matter. Like, for instance, early on in the Q posting, he used a symbol at the end of one of his posts, +++, 3 plus signs at the end of a post. And later we found out that +++ refers to the House of Saud. And then ++ is the Rothschilds, and then plus is George Soros, right? And Q refers to that as the three sides of that triangle that runs everything. Okay. So those are the enemies, right? So we already took out the House of Saud, is what Q says. We already have one branch decimated, right?
And that's interesting. That part there is what kind of tipped me off to really start looking into Q, because shortly before that, like days before that, he had posted that thing that said, like, first SA, then NK, then USA, then EU, and stuff like that. And then almost immediately after all those arrests of the princes in Saudi Arabia happened, and shortly after that was the North Korea summit started to take place. Like, not the actual summit, but the talking about it started taking place. And then right around that same time, the Iran deal got kicked to the curb. And I'm just like, holy shit, something.
And then the protests started happening in Iran all over again. Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like everything that's happened in the news since I started following Q, I haven't been surprised by. And that confirms it for me. It's like they're telling me a different narrative, but the facts that they're reporting about and trying to spin in their favor, I knew those already because Q talked about it. That's crazy, right? So POTUS, okay, so back to the +++ thing. So Q posted that post with +++ at the end, and then like under 10 minutes later, POTUS tweeted, and at the end of his tweet, he ended it with +++, exactly the same as Q did, not making it up. And there are countless instances of that kind of thing in his tweets. And here's why it's hilarious to me, because he's a master troll, right? Spelling errors aren't actually accidents, okay? Kofifi, for instance. We all remember Kofifi. How can you forget Kofifi?
Right. Of course, the big news of the day.
Did you know that there's a little triad of islands just southeast of Jeffrey Epstein's island called the Kofifi Islands?
Get out of here.
Not lying.
Shut up.
Oh my gosh.
So what is
It's not spelled the way that he spelled it in the tweet, but phonetically, the way everybody landed on pronouncing it was Kofifi. And there are three islands.
What is Laurel and Yanni? What's the Q behind that?
I have no idea. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
That's something. There's something there. I guarantee it. But anyway,
another Q proof. Okay, so that break that I was telling you about, July 4th, and then 20 days later he posted again. When he posted again, it was the day of the Kansas City rally, and no, he was speaking at a VFW event, and the morning of the event, before the event started, I'm talking like 10 minutes before the event started. So this is like 10:20 something, and the event starts at 10:30. Q posts again for the first time in 20 days. And the first line of his post, all in bold, is "from sea to shining sea." And then he goes on to post, the rest of his drop. Then the rally starts, and President Trump's intro music is the proud to be an American, for at least I know I'm free. Right. And I shit you not, I watched the video.
Yes. Sing the whole song.
When it gets to the "from sea to shining sea" line, Trump obviously draws attention to the line before it's even sung, and like conducts and like smiles. It was so obvious that he was drawing attention specifically to that line. And it was 10 minutes after Q posted "from sea to shining sea," and it was the first post back in 20 days.
I had seen that part. That part blew my mind too. Just how close they were and how coincidental. Well, what most people would say coincidental it was. It's just like, oh my gosh, that actually is a thing.
Or let's talk about the number 17 and how often that shows up in what Trump says and what he does. For instance, every president gets like a jersey. I don't know if it's a football jersey or a basketball jersey, but they get a jersey.
That's
like
news to me too.
Yeah, and they all get their number. Like Obama got 44, Bush got 43, Clinton got 42, etc. Trump got 17. Trump's jersey is the number 17, which is
not 45.
No, not 45. 17, which is
17 is the number Q.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In a speech a little while ago, it was after Q started posting again. He said he went off on one of his tangents, which is another thing, is because if you buy what Q is saying, and Trump and the Q team are using the same comm structure as the deep state does, then the weird rabbit trails Trump goes on start to make more sense to you, because you may not know what exactly it is he's communicating, but you can bet that it's not just nonsense that he's spouting off. There's a specific reason why he's saying what he's saying, and the people he's communicating with are understanding it, right? And so he was talking about how many times he'd been to DC before he became president, and he said like 5 times within the space of 30 seconds the number 17. He was like, yeah, I probably went there 17 times, about 17 times before I was president. I think I only stayed there 7 nights maybe, but it was definitely 17 times. Like, he'll go out of his way to say it.
Very exactly, precisely 17 times in my entire
which is not
years of existence.
Yeah, right. I'm just going to round to 17.
You're right, just about 17. Yeah.
I'm not even going to round. I'm just going to say, well, it's exactly 17.
Right. So yeah, everything that's happened over the past 2 years makes sense to me now, because of what Q is framing it as. And you gotta, when you're trying to be as rational as you can, you're following the evidence where it leads, even if it seems too good to be true. Because Dan, I totally identify with that. I still struggle with that, where I have to root myself back in. Okay, seriously, what do you know about what's going on? Remind yourself that it's unprecedented. CEO resignations, FBI firings and resignations, Department of Justice firings and resignations, senators, congressmen who aren't running for re-election or who have resigned. All of them, if you look at the raw data, unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it. Okay. Unprecedented amounts of sealed court proceedings, unprecedented amounts of restructuring in the government and resignation. I think that what's happening is real. And I think that the Q, like I said at the beginning, you want to simplify it, it's an information dissemination app. That's what they're doing. And they've done it very successfully, because anything that they lead you to, it is only based on on fact, things that leftists would refer to, government websites and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to go into the darker portions of it, because it's not just treason and sedition against the country or trying to turn America, into a shell of what it was before and sell off its technology. If you really want to go down to the rabbit hole, there's a big old pedophilic element to this, and it's not to be taken lightly. Like the Pizzagate stuff is laughed at because they're good at creating narratives and getting people to buy it. But if you look at the FBI document regarding officially recognized symbols and code words that pedophiles use to communicate with each other, and then you look at John Podesta's emails, I'm sorry, but that guy is a pedophile and he participated in sex trafficking. There's no other way to read the emails. Even
without his emails, you just look at all their artwork and the things they're interested in. It's just like, obviously there's something going on here.
Because they make a lot of money off of kids and they indulge in doing horrible things to children, violent things to children.
Has Q mentioned anything about Pizzagate?
Greg, real quick before you get into that, I want to say this has been fun and we're definitely going to keep going, but I feel like, we've gone on for longer than we intended to by far. And at some point you got to say, hey, this is a free show. If you want the extended, darker side of this conversation, you're going to have to go over and support the show for as little as a cup of coffee a month at patreon.com/The System Is Down. But we'll give you one little bit more nugget before we jump over to bonus, and we'll get everybody's thoughts on basically just like what is your overall opinion of this theory, and what do you think the implications are? I know that already is like 20 minutes each, but Scott, like where do you think this is all going?
Well, if you want the optimistic take, if it is what it appears to be, and what I think it appears to be is clearly a good thing. It's a good operation that the Q team is engaging in. They're not trying to trick us. There's no violence in the movement. If you post anything violent on the Reddit subreddit, you will get banned from the subreddit. So if you see anything about violent Q people, it's a lie. There's not a threat of violence in the movement. Q doesn't want worship or respect or adulation. He never demands it or asks for it, and it's never given to him. He's just pointing people towards information. And there's a fair amount of reference to scripture and divine things in the Q posts as well. So I think that if it's to be taken at face value and they succeed in their endeavor here to get rid of the deep state and truly return America to the people, I think that it's obviously utopias are impossible, but as damn near to a utopia as you can get if you actually understand what liberty is.
Exciting times, to say the least.
Yeah. I think you're talking 4.1% GDP right now. I seriously wouldn't be surprised if this stuff is real and it happens. 10, 15% GDP is not out of the question. If you return the currency to something that's real, which, by the way, Trump has talked about the Federal Reserve openly, which means he's confident nobody can kill him, because you don't talk about the Fed and expect to walk away.
Save it.
I will.
Save it for the bonus.
That's what's going to happen. Okay. To sum that up, if you want the soundbite, if it all pans out, you're talking production, prosperity, free time, and the freedom to pursue your passions, the likes of which we have never ever seen. And that's it.
Awesome.
That's what I think.
I love it. Craig, you want to surmise your thoughts thus far?
Well, up until, like I said before, I was really skeptical. I still have a hard time not being skeptical because of what you said at the beginning, that this all sounds way too good to be true, that something like this could just completely reverse what's all the crap that's going on in our country, all the evil people that we know are in the country, and the things that are happening in the country. It does seem impossible for all this to be coincidence, for everything to just, he just says something vague and it happens to come true. No, just from the stuff I've read, if, like I said, I haven't dug too deep, if it is true that he said some of these things and 10 minutes later that exact same thing happened, or the next day these arrests were made that were basically his predictions, I I can't tie that all to coincidence because too many things have happened once or twice. Yeah, coincidence, but otherwise, no. But my thoughts are, let's say it is true, and there is this plot to take down what Q calls the bad actors or the black hats or whatever, the shadow government. Mm-hmm. And all these, like, let's say within the next year, 38,000 arrests happen, or even 10,000 arrests, or however many we think that it is. I still think there's at least 50% of the people that are going to be outraged. There's going to be an uproar. I don't know. I think it's got to get bad before it gets good, even if it goes the way that the Q people are saying it's going to go. I think it's got to get bad. There's got to be, I think either way, there's going to be some sort of civil war. Like you said, they basically are going to have to, at some point, roll out the tanks and enforce something, because you're not going to get everybody on board. Whether you get 70% of the people or 20% of the people on board, you're still going to have that group of people that is completely against Trump and buying the mainstream media, and anything you do against their people, like the Clintons or whoever they side with, it's just going to cause an uproar. And so I would love to see it happen, but on the other hand, it's a terrifying thought to me to think of. I mean, to think of something like this happen. That's no reason for me to think it shouldn't happen. We shouldn't just let things keep going on the way they are, just out of fear that people will get upset, because that's how things have just kept going on for the last 60, 70 years, because that's just business as usual. So would I like to see things change and people get brought down? Yeah, sure, of course. But I think it's going to be a scary place for a while if it does happen.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it certainly has the potential to go that way. And I'm not for Trump, and if he really does have the full backing of the military, I'm not for this necessarily this coup where they're like, let's roll tanks in and say it's our way or the highway, guys. I think that's the wrong answer too. But we can get into more of that in the bonus content. My final thoughts are, I'm Mulder. Like, I want to believe. I hope that this is true, 100%. I think it would be, even if it does cause some damage, not hoping for it, but even if it does, if it's like, I never thought in my lifetime I would see politics being interesting to even the slightest extent, let alone politics being like being able to look at what's going on and see the possibility of a complete, just dump on history, like this huge dent in history where we said we're done. And like, I want to believe that Trump and Q team and all that they're all completely genuine and accurate and correct and everything. And I want it to be like this crazy outlandish thing where they're fighting for the best interest. I don't know. There's a lot to it. Like, even if they're fighting for what they think is the best interest, doesn't mean it's exactly what is best for the country. I don't know. Humans still, even if they are shaking things up. But nonetheless, exciting times, and we'll get more into some darker details here in just a minute. If you are a member of the Downers Club, then you can go probably listen to that right now, because I'll have it posted at the same time. And if you're not, for as little as $5 a month, just less than a cup of Starbucks, you can go listen to that. Scott, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Cool. Yeah, Scott, for not being the resident expert, man, you had a well of information.
I am officially upgrading you to expert based on my understanding, because you definitely, it wasn't a fill in the blanks. It was just absorbing what you're saying, and I really appreciate it and your knowledge.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I would just encourage anybody that's listening to go look it up, because there's literally so much information. I'm not even cracking the surface of what I've looked at.
Do you have references that they should look into?
Yeah, I think a great place to start is the subreddit. Go to reddit.com, and search Great Awakening, and it'll take you to that page. If you take a look at the hot items or whatever, they have a lot pinned there that are good for beginners to kind of get acclimated to it. And then from there, you can learn for yourself and decide for yourself.
You can, a good way that I got into it was just YouTube, like just YouTube, who is Q or something. You can find people that just want to explain like from the beginning, like kind of dummy proof it.
The problem with that though now is now that the mainstream media has glommed onto the Q thing, when I looked up who is Q, or just like Q basics or whatever, it's a lot of like Q is this like alt-right conspiracy, crazy people, Pizzagate nonsense.
Yep. You can't Google it no more because you're going to get filtered results now. Use DuckDuckGo if you're going to Google anything conspiracy related anyway, because it'll give you what the people who believe it are actually saying.
Here's the first, if you Google it, the first thing that comes up is how 3 conspiracy theorists took Q and sparked QAnon.
Yep. Exactly.
Or let's see, explaining the latest conspiracy theory, Q at Trump rallies, explaining the internet conspiracy theory. The far right is struggling to contain QAnon after giving it life. So yeah, those are the first few Google posts.
Well, it is. It's tough to contain when a bunch of people learn a bunch of stuff that they can't unlearn. You just can't unlearn it, and so we won't be made to feel stupid because we know what we know. So that's it. What are we doing? The bonus material now?
We're going to do bonus right now. Once again, thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you all on the other side of the Patreon wall. Thanks. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Craig and Scott as much as I did. I always love these conversations, as you know. I always say it. And if you want the second half of this conversation, where we got into some of the deeper, darker stuff and went down a couple more rabbit trails, we got pretty off the rails and pretty deep into this thing over in the bonus content that you can get by joining the Downers Club. You can do so by going to patreon.com/The System Is Down and signing up for at least $5 a month, or as little as $5 a month, I would say. If you sign up at higher levels, you can get different perks like free shirts and stuff like that. And we actually have a new shirt in the System Is Down web store. It is a Q shirt, and it says "I'm with Q." Anon, or something something to that effect. So go check out the Downers Club. We put out multiple bonus episodes every single week of the show, and we get much more, I'll say much more offensive in that content, and it's completely unedited. So go check that out, patreon.com/The System Is Down. And if you would like to just pick up a brand new QAnon shirt, go over to tsidpod.com/shop and grab one now. I think, we put mugs in there, QAnon mugs too. So go check those out. Not trying to just merchandise off this thing. I think it's a very interesting, very, very interesting theory that has a lot of little legs to stand on so far. I think it might be going somewhere, and as of right now, I think it's at the very least worth spreading the word about so people can keep an eye out for some of the symbolism and some of the stuff that's going on. So it won't be, I mean, the more people you alert to this type of thing as early as possible, the easier it is to, talk down the road, because you're not just this nut job pointing out all the giant masses of amounts of things that are going on. Like with Scott in this episode, he had a hard time focusing because there's just so much to it and it's coming out so rapidly. So we need to, I don't like the word woke, but we need to start, I guess, red pilling people. And even if it's not true, we need to get people to look at this stuff and to think about what is being flashed in front of their faces every day. So that would be my challenge to you when you go out and have your uncomfortable conversation this week with somebody you don't know, or maybe somebody you do know. Just have a face-to-face conversation with somebody, maybe about Q. Maybe bring it up. If you think it's complete garbage, then get their thoughts on it. They probably do too. I don't know. Talk to somebody who disagrees with you, though. If you think it's 100% true, then go talk to somebody who thinks it's garbage, and vice versa. Just go talk to somebody. Go talk to somebody and be a nice, civil, decent human being. And hopefully hopefully we can do a little bit of damage, a little bit of a dent in where our social society is heading, I suppose. Just showing that we can have these conversations and not be jerks about it. So go do that. Go get into the forum and have the conversations as well. Scott and Craig are both members, as am I, of course. You can go in there for absolutely free and chat with all of us and post and talk to a bunch of just interesting, strange, and unique individuals like us and like yourself. So go over to tsidpod.com/forum and join the System is Down forum today. And go do all the liking, sharing, and subscribing on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. And, just do your part to help get the word out there about the show. I appreciate you guys very much and all that you've done so far. Our numbers are steadily growing every single week. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that we can do another Q1 in the not-too-distant future as things unfold. So all that said, if you'll have me, I will be right back here, safely nestled into your eardrums, first thing next Monday morning with some more uncomfortable conversations for you. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, question everything and stay uncomfortable. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.